Okay, for everyone on YouTube, we're talking to Mike Kunda. You guys are going to love this guy. Mike, I'm going to come right out and say,
Yeah.
I saw your movie up there a while ago, a long while ago. I can't remember when. And I saw the preview and I went, I'm not going to watch this goofball. I'm not going to, whatever. The guy's putting on makeup to look like Rocky after he got his ass kicked. What's wrong with this guy? This guy's got to have a mental issue. He's got to have a problem, right? And then about a couple of months ago, whenever I wrote to you, I was talking to, let me tell you what happened. I'm going to tell you the story. You need to know this story, and then you're going to understand why I fell in love with you.
No, it's going well so far, so go ahead.
I called you a goofball and an idiot, but
I get it all the time. Trust me.
I'll work backwards from there.
Okay.
So I moved into a new neighborhood. I lived in California for 30 years, worked with celebrities and what have you. And I had enough, and I moved to the East Coast. I'm somewhere in Virginia, and I have a neighbor. I have a lot of neighbors, and they all have young kids. And there's these 4 boys that live right next door in the cul-de-sac. And I get the biggest thrill because I hear them bouncing basketballs outside, and they're soccer balls and the whole thing. So I went out there early on when I moved here because I'm the only guy in the neighborhood with a swimming pool. And I said, look, guys, I'm not going to use that swimming pool, but I got to keep it up because it came with the house. So what I'm going to do here is say, you can bring all your kids over whenever you want. Don't even knock on the door. As long as there's a parent with them, go around to the back. My pool is your pool. I became the hit of the neighborhood on day one.
Nice.
Right. So I get to know these kids. I go out, I teach them how to do layups. I show them all kinds of stuff. I don't have any kids of my own. My stepdaughter is graduating college, this year. And so these kids have become my de facto kids. And they're all into sports and everything. And one day I'm talking to the dad, and I said, have you shown them the Rocky movies yet? And he said, no. I said, when are you planning on showing them the Rocky movies? And he goes, I've never seen the Rocky movie. And I'd move. And I was like, yeah, when you call yourself a cop, he's a cop. He's like, you call yourself a cop?
Right.
And I said to him, I said, Todd, how old are you? And he goes, 39. And I realized that Rocky has now missed a whole generation to where he's never seen it. Right. And I asked his wife, she's never seen, they know about Rocky. They know the mystique of the original movie and the whole thing. And I said, you know what, guys, I got this big giant 80-inch, whatever, you can actually see, you see that black thing in the mirror, but it's over there.
There you go.
That's my television.
Right.
It slides up and down the wall.
Nice.
So I said, I'll tell you what, send your kids over. You can come too. And I'm going to show them Rocky. And when I started watching Rocky, I started to worry because these kids aren't used to a slow movie, right?
Sure.
It's a slow burn, Mike. And I'm like, shit, it's not even about sports. It's a love story. I got between 8 and 12 years old in the room here. These kids aren't going to get it. They're not get. So I keep looking at them while they're watching a movie, and they're hanging on every piece of it. Because as you know, Rocky, you know it better than me. There's no fighting or anything at the beginning. He's pretending to break fingers and,
all that. Right.
Or as my brother would say, Rocky 1, the one where Rocky still smoked, And I'm just watching and watching and watching. And at the end of the movie, these kids I can see tears in their eyes and they're chanting and the whole thing. And they want to know if it's a true story. And I said, guys, it's not a true story, but it's a great story. And I said, I'm going to tell you something else. There's a Rocky 2. They couldn't wait to come over, Mike.
Wow.
The next weekend they came over, we did Rocky 2. And then one of the kids said, is there a Rocky 3? And I said, you better believe there's a Rocky 3. So we watched Rocky 3. And then he wanted to know if there was a 4. And I said, you know what? And I want your opinion on this, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, some people think 4 is the best one since 1. And
Right.
they said, there's really a 4. And I said, there's a 4. And we watched Rocky 4. These kids were just done in by Rocky, right? They couldn't get enough.
Sure. Sure.
This is where you come into the picture.
Okay.
I told you all that to tell you this. About a week later, one of the biggest writer producers in Hollywood was here at my house. Old friend, and one of my best friends, a guy named Doug Richardson, wrote one of the best Christmas movies of all time. What's the best Christmas movie of all time, Mike?
For me personally,
Yeah.
Christmas Vacation. For me.
Okay.
Then I'd have to go with, of course, the It's a Wonderful Life. And then third, bringing up the rear, probably A Christmas Story.
Okay. Those are all 3 great Christmas movies.
Right,
I
right.
would have to agree. As a matter of fact, my wife and I watched It's a Wonderful Life last night.
Beautiful.
You know, it's Thanksgiving time.
Sure.
Folks, we're recording this around Thanksgiving time, the Monday after Thanksgiving. And this probably won't come out for 3 weeks, Mike.
Sure.
But we're watching it. And we love that movie. And by the way, that was never meant as a Christmas story, by the way.
I
Well-
know. Crazy.
Right. But the best Christmas movie of all time was written by my friend. Die Hard.
I mean, that's the great question of all time. Is it a Christmas movie or is it not? I don't know.
Doug Richardson wrote Christmas, the second one, Die Hard 2.
Yeah. Bruce Willis says it is not a Christmas movie.
And if you ask Doug Richardson, he will say it is a Christmas movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it depends on who you ask, whether it's a
Right.
Christmas movie or not.
Yeah.
So Doug Richardson's sitting here, we're having a scotch.
Mm.
And I start talking about these kids and how they're looking at Rocky and the whole thing. And he goes, have you ever seen The Pretender? And I said, no, I haven't. I said, because I saw the preview and the guy's putting on eye makeup. He looks like a goof. Oh, what's he doing? I don't know what he's doing. I can't. He goes, watch that movie. Watch that movie. A couple of days later, Doug was gone.
Mm.
I watched The Pretender. And the first thing I did when I watch everything from my spin, I was on my spinning bike. I
Yeah,
watched my
yeah.
Spinner. First thing I did, I got off my bike and I called my assistant. I said, get me Mike Kunda. I don't care what it takes. Get me Mike Kunda. I got to have this guy on my show.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Here's the other thing. Doug's wife, Karen, we had a conversation. I told her you were coming on the show.
Mm.
And she said, you know, I said to her, I said, you know, Rocky, the original Rocky got me out of the swamps of Louisiana. And yeah, I made something of my life because I saw Rocky.
Yeah.
And she goes, you know, she became a writer and she met Doug and the whole thing. They, been married for 20 years, 25 years.
Oh, that's nice.
And, she goes, you know, that's what got me out of my hometown too. And I said, you know, for us, our generation, everyone our age became inspired by Rocky.
Mm.
And I said, but Mike Kunda, his inspiration went a different way. He became not just Rocky, but Stallone. How does that happen?
By not taking my meds. That's number one. That's the first thing. You can't do that. No. You know, the thing with Rocky is it's so relative to all of us. You don't have to be a boxer. You just have to have a little bit of life underneath your belt. And you can be an 8-year-old. You can be a 25 or an 80-year-old. You get the concept of a struggle. Struggle at 8 is different at 30 than 60 and so on, but it's still a struggle. And all of us, like as we get older and we live life, you got to run, you get up and you struggle to get up in the morning. You struggle to get through traffic, to get to work. Maybe you get overpassed for a promotion that you probably deserve a shot at, but for whatever reason, you get passed over. Well, to me, I was a little kid in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1979. Now, Rocky comes out in 76, as everybody knows. But I didn't see it until I was 11 years old on television, Sunday night, 1979, February. And it changed my world. I was a very tiny kid. I'm only 5'10". I'm not a very large guy at all. But I was very tiny, and schoolyard kids would have their way with me. So my dad was a tailor, and we were so poor growing up, we couldn't afford costumes, Halloween costumes. So my dad would cobble together these costumes from around the house. My first hero was Lone Ranger and Zorro. The problem was I wouldn't take this costume off. I'd wear it year round at Christmas time, in the summertime, at Easter, because I was very, very insecure. I had two of the most wonderful parents a kid could have. They bear no responsibility. This is a psychological tick of my DNA. I'm a very insecure guy, not one that I wear on my sleeve. I bury it down deep. And when I saw Rocky, my father said, Mikey, I know these kids are pushing you around the schoolyard. Maybe Rocky, you can pick up something for the schoolyard. And when it's your dad, your dad has your best interest. So Rocky came on, and we hear Bill Conti's score, fanfare for Rocky, as those big white letters scroll across. I was blown away. And I went to bed that night, and I took my gray sweatshirt because I must become the hero, because I think people would like me better if I'm the hero. And I write on the back of my sweatshirt, Italian Stallion, because that's what Rocky wrote. Yeah. And I wore it to school the next day. But none of the kids got it. They didn't really care. Nobody spoke to me. But in the 70s, you'll remember, teachers could slap you, kick you, harass you, humiliate you. That's how it was. And my big mouth, which is what I fought back with, I disrupted class. He brought me to the front of the class, turned me around, and asked everybody, can you tell me what's wrong with Kunda's sweatshirt? And nobody got it. And he goes, this is the incorrect spelling of Italian Stallion. So from a very early age, I realized if you're going to be these heroes, you got to try to get things right.
Yeah.
So when I was 13, I got into another fight. My grandfather called me up to his house. He gave me you could see right over there, over my shoulder, right there is a head bust of Stallone. That black hat is what my grandfather gave me when I was a kid. It was a replica of Stallone's and his leather jacket. And I wore that on my journey. My grandfather knew this was my suit of armor to protect me. And it just kind of grew from there. I don't know how far you want to go into it, but that's how it started.
Well, you don't really mention that in the movie, in The Pretender. Right. I'm glad you brought that up. So, Mike, I need to get a handle. How old are you today?
53.
Okay, I'm 59.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you my Rocky story now.
Yeah, please.
So I'm in a small town, Donaldsonville, Louisiana. I was literally born on a bayou. I mean, Creedence Clearwater Revival wrote a song about me. Yeah, I was born in a shotgun shack. I'm not making that up. Right. On Railroad Avenue, Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Not a hospital, by the way. In a shotgun shack. And I had a hearing problem. I couldn't hear until I was surgery was when I was 4 or 5. They were able to do a surgery, and I got like 70% of my hearing. So I had a speech impediment from hell. It was just, you know how deaf kids sound when they talk.
Sure, of course.
That was me.
Okay.
Well, I'm getting beat up. I'm in Catholic school.
Well, double bogey.
You telling me?
Yeah.
I got the nuns goofing on me, and when the nuns are goofing on you when you're like 7 and 8,
yeah,
it allows the other kids to know that you're fair game because you're just fair game. Yeah. Because if I was a quizzical kid, I'd raise my hand in class and go with my brother, and the nuns would go blah 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 blah, get the marbles out of your mouth, and the kids would all laugh. Yeah, it was bad. I wanted, Mike, I wanted to die every day.
Sure.
I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. Maybe that's why I like kids and coming over and the kids and everything.
Yeah.
I like that. I was that come from behind kid.
Sure.
But I wasn't coming from behind, brother. I was just down, right? Well, something that happened in 1975. It was the worst moment in my life. And you might be too young to remember this show, but there was a show called Welcome Back, Kotter.
Oh, Mr. Kotter. Watched it all the time. My parents as a kid.
Mr. Kotter. Who was the main character in that show?
Vinnie Barbarino.
Thank you. And what was Vinnie Barbarino if he wasn't the dumbest human being on the planet?
What?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's all Travolta had to do.
He had the look.
Yeah, he had the hair, the look. I'm the Italian kid down in Cajun country named
Wow.
Vinnie. I'm being goofed on by everyone. Oh, look, Mr. Dumb Vinnie Barbarino. Look, he's
Right.
dumb. Just like now, look, we all know that Travolta became a couple of years later became Mr. Disco and became the
Oh
biggest
yeah.
actor in the world. But in 1975, I had the same name as the dumbest motherfucker on
Yeah.
television.
Right.
Or no,
Right.
it was not good for me. It got kids beat me up double. Kids would go, "Hey, Vinnie Barbarina." I'd be sitting there going, "Can you think of anything else? Can you come up with it?
Right.
What, that's supposed to be funny?" Right? Well, I had started working out. There was an old Italian in my town, a guy named Joe Bonadonna.
Yeah.
And Joe Bonadonna, I was 8, 9 years old. I went to his gym in his garage every day. And Joe and I would, he said, "Look, come." Joe never goofed on me. I had a best-selling book, Mike. You don't know much about me, but I wrote a book called Fitness Confidential. I talk about Joe in the book. And I talked about how this one human being never goofed on me. And I went to Joe's every day. At first, he would only let me do push-ups and pull-ups, whatever I could do body weight. And then we moved into more weights. And by the time I was like 12 or 13, I was built like a brick shit house.
Nice.
We had a movie theater in town called the Grand Theater. It would show one film. That's all it had, one big screen. So
Yeah.
whatever came to town would stay for a month, 6 weeks or whatever. And everybody in town would go see the movie, right? We couldn't get to Baton Rouge. That was just high polluting, right? All of a sudden, kids are coming to school going, "Hey," this is 76, a year later.
Mm.
"We saw a movie with a guy that sounds like you and he's dumb just like you." Like they're telling me this to my face. "He talks like you. He's kind of stupid, you know? He's stupid. His name is Rocky." And I'm like, holy shit, I'm not even over Vinnie Barbarino. Hollywood sending another god to kill me?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Everybody's like, "No, Vin, you got to go see this movie. You know how you jump rope every day? Rocky jump ropes. Man, you should see. You guys look alike when you jump rope." He does the twist
Yeah.
with the hand.
Crisscross. Yeah.
And I'm like sitting there going, I'm never going to jump rope again. Like I didn't see the movie yet, right? It's like I'm never going to jump rope. As a matter of fact, they're like, "Hey, you know, you could do like push-ups and clap and all." He's doing that in the movie, and I'm like, what does he sound like? "Oh, he sounds dumb, just like you." These are kids telling me to go see this movie because this guy is dumb, just like me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, God, please stop, please stop. It's a couple of days before this movie's out. It's just going to be gone forever. And my brother says, "We got to go see this." Everyone's saying we got to see it.
Yeah.
When that screen turns black and you start seeing Rocky come across the screen,
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I'm sitting there like this, and I'm kind of like halfway looking at the screen like this.
Right.
I don't want to see it. I don't want. And then he comes on and is like, "Hey, he's got black hair. He kind of looks like me. And shit, he does kind of sound like me." I still have the really bad speech. And
Oh, sure.
I've cleaned up my speech a lot. I know
Yeah.
you're sitting
Yeah.
there going, "You call that cleaned up?" But
No, they sound great.
so I'm like, oh man, oh man, oh man. And then I'm watching a movie and I'm like, what's everyone talking about? Mick is kicking him out of the gym. Everyone hates this guy.
Right.
Not the best boxer in the world. He wants to beat up on this Italian guy and the whole thing.
Mm.
And then at the end of the movie, I got tears in my eyes. He's yelling for Adrian. He's, just this whole thing. And for once in my life, for the first time in my life, I felt like, oh my God, things could change because of this guy. So you and I had the same kind of story.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've got something very, very quick, short story, very much like yours with Vinnie Barbarino specifically. You remember in 1976, I probably would have been in third grade, I think. Roots. Remember Roots?
Do I? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. One of the lead characters, Kunta Ginte.
Yeah.
My last name being Kunda, Kunda, his being Kunta. Okay, well, that was not good. There was no what can we say? Political correctness. There was nothing.
Right.
I was Kunta Ginte in the third grade. And it's not something I talk about because it's a very sensitive issue for a lot of people, especially African Americans. So I don't really bring it up, but I do understand really what you're saying. When you get compared to something and it can be an adverse thing, it's not easy.
Yeah. So the going back to you, your dad tells this story in your documentary. Mm-hmm. And by the way, your parents are wonderful. I love that your mom sits there the whole time, and at the end she says something so poignant. I love your mom.
And I won't say it here so it doesn't ruin it for people, but what she says, to this day, I still can't watch it and not tear up. And because that is my mother. My mother is, my dad's Sicilian, my mother's Polak. And so she's very quiet all the time. At dinners, everyone talks and she listens. And then she comes in and she's always so to the point and so from the heart. And that's just one of the million things I love about her. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's.
Oh, you're not interrupting. I love that you said Polak, because I don't know if you know, that's off the table now, Mike.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you got to say Polish. I know you're half Polak.
Yeah, I know I am.
Polish.
When did that happen?
We took that off the table a week before we took Eskimo pie off the table.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not making this up.
All right.
Look, the only jokes you can still tell are Italian jokes.
I guess.
You can't tell a Polish joke anymore. Oh, wow. You must have been rife for jokes, man. They can.
Oh my God, yeah.
Italian side and your Polish side.
Oh yeah. Are you kidding? I mean, you know how many one-arm Polak jokes I was told back in the day? It was ridiculous. But and I rolled with it. I thought it was funny. I didn't feel subjected to, I don't know. Trust me, Kunta Ginte and getting beat up every day was way tougher than a Polak joke. But what?
I got the jokes every day too about being Italian and everything. But
really?
And when people say, like you can still say you can still do movies and Italians can still be in the mob. They can still kill people. All that still on the table. Every other group, no problem, off the table. Italians, you can do whatever you want with Italian. Just let it go.
Who cares? Nobody cares.
It's no big deal. But your dad tells a story where you went out for the wrestling team.
Yeah.
And he goes, Mike was ready. He went. How old were you at the time when you went for the wrestling team, Mike?
So I would have been fifth grade. So like 11.
11.
Yeah.
And then you walked out. What he didn't really explain. You walked out and said, they told me to leave. What happened in that story? Because your dad made you go back and you don't really clear it up in the movie.
So at 9 a.m., this thing started. It was on a Saturday at my high school, West Grand High School. And there were different levels. And I was scheduled to wrestle at like 1 o'clock. But my father didn't know that when him and my brother walked down, because we only lived like 3 blocks from the high school. So he was there in the morning and he was showing support. And he could see how nervous I was. And he was trying to, give me advice and bolster my ego and so on. And he said, he looked at the clock and it was like, 12:30 or something. He goes, listen, we're going to go back to the house. We're just going to get a quick sandwich. We're going to be right back. I said, okay, no problem. And he goes, stay focused. So he's gone 10 minutes and I come walking in the back door of the house and he goes, Mickey, what happened? And I go, I don't look at him. I go, oh yeah, the 2 matches ahead of me forfeited and they called me right up and I got pinned 1, 2, 3. I was down like 30 seconds and I'm out. And I couldn't look at him and he knew. Yeah. I think this kid's lying. So I'll never forget it. He gets down on one knee and he looks at me and I'm already filling with tears. And I'm so insecure and I'm so scared because there were maybe 1,000 parents in the gym. All the teammates were there. The competing schools were all there. It was a big to do. And I was 11 years old. I was scared of my own shadow, but Rocky boxed and I didn't have real access to boxing at that point, but I had this wrestling. So I thought, well, wrestling, boxing, I don't know. They could be cousins.
Yeah.
So he says, Tell me what happened. And so I finally broke down, told him, he said, listen, you can stay here. You're safe here. He goes, I'll never think anything less of you. He goes, but if you run now, if you quit, you're going to quit when big moments like this happen in the rest of your life. You're always going to look in that rearview mirror saying, what if I just tried? Mikey, if you want to go back, I'll walk back there with you. If you want to stay here, your mother and I love you just as much. And so we walked back. I go 3 periods. I get my ass kicked. I get finally pinned in the last period with maybe 30 seconds left. I wasn't very good, but the lesson that taught me is don't quit, because that is when you grow. When you break is when you grow. At least for me, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I always look at it as almost falling forward. I fell, but not in place. I fell my body length forward. And when you get up, you have to stand 5 feet farther than you were. And that is the lesson I learned. And I applied that in, when did I apply that? 2010, right after the 2008 economy craps the bed.
Yeah.
I lost my job. I was a general manager and an optician with Lens Crafters for about 11 years. I was running several store locations, but middle management, you're gone.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, I'm looking for a job. I can't get hired. And I was at this one job where it was all kids half my age, and they were the bosses. So I go in, and it was to run a machine to print out the banners that hang on the side of buildings.
Wow.
And you had to fill out, you had a time test. It was a spelling test. It was a trigonometry, geometry, and some type of science stuff. I got out of high school in 1985 with a D+. Okay. I've not used any of that in forever. And I'm an atrocious speller, even though I wrote 2 books and several screenplays.
But you couldn't spell Italian stallion. Let's be honest.
I couldn't spell Italian stallion. That's the thing. Could you imagine? I spelled Italian stallion wrong. And that's how stupid I was.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here at this table, and this child, basically, he gives me the clipboard. He goes, you have 26 minutes. And so to do this test, which normally would have took me 3 hours. And I'm looking at him walking away, and you could see he has the cock of the walk to him, And so I'm like, oh, Jesus. I look at the questions, and I look down the hallway, and there's a glass door, and I see my car parked out front. And I said, I could just throw this here and just walk out that door. They're never going to know. I could save myself the humiliation, because I'm not going to do well on this. I'm going to go in there. These kids are half my age, and they're going to look at it. And so I stayed. I remember what my father told me. I didn't get the job, but I walk in, and I have to hand the clipboard to an assistant, who hands it to an assistant, to another, to the boss. And they're all looking at the answers, and they're all rolling their eyes. And it was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. But that's when you have to hang in there. That is not a horrible life story, but that is just a moment where I reflected on a lesson my dad gave me.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. Look, let's go back to 2008, man. You and I, and this is going to be a very inspirational podcast for people. Shit hit the skids for me. I was probably one of the premier trainers in Hollywood, you name it. You name it, I worked with them. And all of a sudden in 2007, I got leukemia.
Okay.
So I had to stop working, right? I had to go figure out if I was going to live or die. Yeah. So I get through leukemia right at the end of the year. I'm making a few bucks. I went through a lot of my savings. I hadn't met Serena yet. As a matter of fact, I met her at a Starbucks and then had cancer, and it didn't take. I met her again later on.
Yeah.
And I was just down on my luck. And so I started picking up more civilian type clients, not actors, not the heads of studios, just to make ends meet. Right.
Okay.
And so I'm making ends meet. I'm doing well. Still had a few of my celebrity clients. I'm pulling out of that hole again. And the end of 2008 comes when I'm still paying back cancer bills. Economy is gone. All of those civilian clients are gone.
Yeah.
And, we had a writer strike in there and all kinds of stuff. And when writers don't write, actors don't act, then you don't work. I mean,
right. Exactly.
And you live in LA, man, the bills just keep coming. And people kept telling, my buddy, Dean Laurie, who's a writer producer, he kept saying, you should write a book. It's like, Dean, I don't have time to write a book. Write a book. I got to go make money, man. I got bills to pay. And it's like, I'm telling you, you have a book in you, and
yeah.
So when Dean and I sat down, I wrote like, a gazillion, like 40,000 words in notes. And Dean said, you wrote a book basically on the back of envelopes. So in between the clients I had, I would grab envelopes and stuff out of mailboxes and just jot down notes. And then I would just collate all those notes. And next thing I know, Dean and I sat down and wrote Fitness Confidential, which completely changed my life. It started this podcast. It started everything.
Right.
But it came off of big failure. It came off of, my health going to shit. It came off of, the economy tanking, writer strike, everything was happening. And literally I had called my brother who owns a tow truck service in Louisiana. And it's like, look, man, I made it out here for 25 years. I'm coming home. You got a truck I can drive?
Yeah.
That's where I was headed. Unfortunately for me, or very fortunate, I'd met Serena again and fell in love with the process of being broke. That's why I give that woman more credit than anyone else. I was so far down on my luck, and this woman stuck with me. It was like, wow, she's interested in success or money. She seems to like me. Gotta hang on to this one.
That's how it is with the good ones.
Yeah, so that's what's going on, right? And I even wrote it in my book. I wrote, it's not about your IQ in life. It's your FQ, your failure quotient. It's the number of times you can fail and come back.
Yeah.
Right. And when you talk to any successful person, probably including the actual Stallone, who we're going to get to because the guy.
I do.
He had to fail. I know the story is he failed a lot before he wrote Rocky, and then they wanted him to sell it to the studios for nothing.
Yeah.
And the guy hung on to it. And I heard another story where he actually sold his dog. You probably know that story. I don't really know the true story behind him selling his dog, but he had like a kid on the way and the whole thing. He couldn't even feed his own dog.
Right.
That's failure quotient, man. That's the number of times you can fail and come back. And every successful person I know, and I know a lot of them, because of the business I was in, every one of them, they don't sit around and talk about the success. They talk about the failure, the number of times they failed and they came back. I talked to a guy, I shoot skeet. I'm a competitive skeet shooter. I was talking to a guy who went 700 straight without missing a shot. And I said, how did you do that? He said, it came after I missed a shot. Think about that. He didn't go 700 straight until after a miss. You have to miss one before you can go 700 straight.
Right.
Isn't that how life goes?
Exactly how it goes.
Tell me about, I'm more interested in your failures than anything else. Tell me about how the movie came about. And also, when was the movie done? Because a lot has happened to your life since Pretender came out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So back in like 2011, it really started in 2006. I was on the film set, Rocky Balboa in Northeast Philadelphia, a section of neighborhood called Kensington. And they were filming the scene where Rocky goes to a grown Lil Marie's house and he gives her a ride home from the bar and he fixes the light. Anyways, I'm there. And that's where my friendship with Stallone really started. But also, we were on this freezing corner in January of 2006, and there was this guy from Detroit there. And he had real dark olive drab skin. He had the Fu Manchu, and he had a skull cap pulled way down. And we started talking, and he said his name was Jim Toscano, and that he was a documentary filmmaker from Detroit, and he was in town on business. And he heard Stallone was here, and he just wanted to come up and see if he could see it. So we hit it off. We exchanged numbers and social media connections, and he started following me, and he goes, wow. He goes, Mike, you have a really interesting life. He goes, I'd like to do a short 10-minute, quick little documentary. We'll come down, we'll film you for the day, and that'll be that. And when he came down, he quickly realized my life was somewhat more complicated and involved with a million losses and like one win, one big win that changed everything for me. But it depends on what you call a win. So anyways, we started filming. It was over the course of 5 years. And he followed me on my gigs, my tours. We have the big failure of my Rocky gig in the movie. You want to see cringe worthy? Watch The Pretender. You'll see me fail in front of a full Italian restaurant. Now, it's normally I don't go to Ohio to do Rocky. In Philadelphia, I don't fail in Philly. Usually it's huge because people are there, and it's but in Ohio, I'd gotten asked to go out there. And anyways, you'll see that in the movie. Well, that's how Jim and I met. And then over 5 years, we filmed it. Then it played in film festivals all over the world. I mean, Japan, Sweden, Europe, Canada, Mexico, but all over. And we won a lot of awards. And it got picked up by Gravitas out at the Beverly Hills award ceremony out there, at film center out there. We got invited to it. And it was great. We didn't win anything. We lost every category. You're in with the big dogs out there. And, but it didn't matter. We just had a great time. And it was, it really changed my life. And then COVID, talk about, I don't know if serendipity is the right word. I'm not quite sure what it is, but during Creed 2, the filming of Creed 2, 2018, I'm on set with Sly. You can see the pictures over my shoulder.
Yeah.
That's he and I kind of hanging out talking. We're talking there, and he knew about The Pretender. We were talking about it, and he goes, "Mike, you got your phone?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Why don't you give it to my assistant, Sarah? Sarah, why don't you take some video of me and Mike?" He goes, "Take a couple of minutes of video. That way, Mike, you could put it on your website, and maybe you could put it in the Pretender movie, and it will help people see, we're connected." And I thought, okay, shit like this don't happen, not to a guy like me. And it was just like that. And he calls me the ambassador to Rocky Land. I'll never forget it. It was one of the kindest, sweetest things I thought any human could ever do for me, specifically him. Anyways, fast forward now to April 2nd, COVID, 2020. Go to bed. I wake up at 3:00 in the morning. Had to go to the bathroom. Drifting back off. I'm going through messages. I see Instagram. Now, Sly follows me on Instagram. We interact weekly with questions and conversation. It's great. He watches The Pretender. He puts it out on his Instagram. And he says, "If you are a Rocky fan, you've got to see this movie, The Pretender, by the greatest Rocky interpreter, not impersonator, interpreter." And by God, he's right. I am an interpreter. Everyone, an Elvis impersonator is not an Elvis impersonator. There's only one Elvis.
Right.
There's only one Rocky, Sylvester. It's how everyone interprets the character. Right. My interpretation is something he really likes more so than other people's. I don't do the greatest Sylvester Stallone Rocky. I bring the essence of the character. I don't even look that much like Rocky. But when you put the hat on, you curl the lip, you lower the voice, you have the mannerisms, then you've got something to work with. Okay. And when he did that, he had like 500,000 or 600,000 people see that inside of like a week. And I think in a 24-hour period, we had over 50 or 60,000 downloads in one night.
Wow.
On The Pretender. It was crazy. It's crazy. And that's kind of really what took everything to another level was this movie, The Pretender. And the thing I hoped so deeply to convey to people, my dream was to be Rocky or a version of Rocky. And it's so improbable. It's so ridiculously stupid to say to people, "I want to be Rocky." What do you want to, what are you going to do? So to make that happen, I couldn't do it alone. Right. There was a series of Forrest Gump-like moments in my life where all these kind strangers I didn't know just were there for me. And to top it all off, I could do none of it if I didn't have the wife I had, the supportive wife. Which I could do it 10 hours on the support that she gave me.
Oh, and we're getting into your wife. You're not going anywhere because I got questions about the wife.
Yeah, she's
don't. Yeah, you have the most forgiving. every wife should be like your wife.
I know.
Right? Don't worry. We're getting into your wife. You're not getting out of here, Mike.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. So I ramble a lot and I get cut off sometimes. You know what, Mike? We got to go. I got like,
No,
TV
Mike,
show, and they said,
we got another WAP over here. We're going to talk a little bit.
Good.
So here's the deal. Stallone is correct because in the movie, like sometimes, and the filmmaker does a great job of showing this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're Mike Kunda, and then you fall into not Stallone, or sometimes you fall into an actual Stallone, the actor persona, but then it's almost like you morph into Rocky, the character, and you become Rocky, the character. And that, as a matter of fact, that cringeworthy moment when you're in Ohio at that pizza place.
Yeah.
I don't think you could have done that as Mike or Stallone.
Whoa.
You had to be Rocky. You had to be that kind of lovable oaf that, you having pizza there? But tell me about the pizza. Or whatever you do. Yeah. But you didn't, you were that guy. You just morphed into that guy. Does that just happen when the camera's on, or because you've done it a couple of times here on the podcast where you're Mike and then you just become Rocky for a second? Right. How does that work?
Oh, I'm all very, very aware. It's been well crafted over 40 years. So like, how can I say it? It's like, it's like a gray shirt you got on there, Vinnie. You know what I mean? But like, it's a little bright, don't you think, for this thing? Because like people are going to see you like a blinking neon light outside of a tower. You know what I mean? But then you just like, here's Mike. Oh, Vinnie, that's a really great shirt there. I like that. What store did you pick that up at? It's kind of cool. And you just go into whatever you feel. To be honest, what I draw from is whenever I feel insecure or less than, that's usually where I dip my toe into Rocky. Because even now, as a 53-year-old accomplished guy who's good friends with Sylvester Stallone and who's built a career around this thing, even now I still feel I'm less than always, and I feel there's always an expectation. All right, Mike Kunda, I don't know what you're doing here, but like you're supposed to be some Rocky guy, and you're not really hitting the Rocky notes here for me. You don't really look like him. You got chubby cheeks. You're a little off here. I don't know what's going on. So I feel I have to go into it and say, oh, there it is. Oh, I see why Vinnie got this guy on, because there's Rocky. You see what I mean? So it really comes from insecurities, but I know when I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, obviously, when you're doing it. It's not like you go into a trance, but it's almost like you go into a trance because you become him. You become the character in the movie, right? Yeah, and like I said, sometimes you cross. I met Stallone once. Didn't matter to me. Isn't that weird? I'd been in Hollywood for maybe 6 or 8 months. This is around 1991, 92-ish. And one of my early clients said, hey, you just moved to town. You don't know that many people, right? And I'm like, no. He goes, there's a guy named, there's a producer. It's his birthday tonight. His name is Rennie Harlan. Come to Rennie's, birthday celebration. It's on Sunset Boulevard. It's at this, they've closing down this whole club, and you can meet other people. You might pick up a couple of clients, right? So I walked into Rennie Harlan's whatever, right? I don't know who Rennie Harlan is, nor do I care, right?
Cliffhanger, directed Cliffhanger.
Okay, that guy, right? So I walk in, and the first person I see is Mick Jagger and his statuesque wife at the time. And I went, oh my God, that's Mick Jagger. He's as fucking ugly in person as I've always thought he would be. Because I've always had a thing about Mick Jagger. Oh. Women think Mick Jagger, they go, oh, he's so sexy. It's like, if that guy worked in a 7-Eleven, you spit on him. You wouldn't think twice if you saw Mick. But because he's a rock star, now you think he's hot, right? I always say, do the 7-Eleven test. If you're going to spit on him at 7-Eleven, he's not sexy. It's just the way it is. Right. So I was like, oh my God, it's Mick Jagger over there. Man, what the fuck is Mick Jagger doing? I didn't realize it was that big of a deal to be at this party, but first person I see is Jagger. And then I turn and I go, oh my God, there's Stallone sitting at the table, and he's got a couple of Goombas around him.
Yeah.
How old is Stallone in 91? He's got, I don't know. How old is he now? He's in his
So
70s.
he's 75 now. So in 76, he was 30. 86, he's 40. So what year are you saying?
91. So 44.
45 is 44,
Yeah.
45.
So, he still looks, young Stallone.
Yeah. Oh,
He's still
yeah.
doing Rocky movies, right? And
Right.
and I walk in and there he is. And he's got a couple of Goombas around him. And I went, oh my God, I love this guy's move. Let me go over and say hi. And so
Yeah.
I walk over and two of the guys stand up. And I look at him. I go, what, you going to get these guys to kick my ass? What are we doing? And he just gives them a look and they sit back down. I went, oh, that's the coolest goddamn thing in the world. I got to figure out how to get so famous in life that all I got to do is give my guys a look and they'll sit down again. Right.
Right. Right.
And he was very nice. I said, love your movies. I didn't mean to bother you. He goes, hey, I'm glad you came. Nice to meet you. That kind of thing.
Sure. Sure.
He's that, he's glad handing. Some guy walks up to him. And by the way, you got to be someone to be at the party. He didn't know if I was director, producer. He doesn't know who.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just a guy at a very fancy party, so he's got to be nice to me, right? But you go out of your way to find this guy, to seek him out, right? And then become friends with him. What's that like?
Well, you see, it's all it. So I never went out of my way to find him. It just happened. I am not a big believer in fate or destiny. My mother and my wife think I'm crazy, but I think there may be something to the law of attraction. So if you put out good vibes are going to come back to you. I do believe that. So in New York, it was my birthday is August 18th. So we were in New York City. My wife had secretly told my parents and my whole family to be at Planet Hollywood. They didn't know Stallone was across the river filming Copland in 1995 or 95. I think it came out in 96. And they had no clue about this. So we turn the corner. There's my family. We go into Planet Hollywood and there's a bar. We're waiting because the lines were long to get in. And all of a sudden, the restaurant's quiet, and Stallone comes walking out. And he had put some weight on to play Sheriff Freddie Heflin. He had a Hawaiian shirt and had big hair, aviators. So, and we had a little interaction there, little interaction in Atlantic City. And then it started getting more and more and more. It just happened to be there. Then he had a book signing in New York City. It was at Rockefeller Center. It was just before Rocky Balboa went into production. And it was his book called Sly Moves. And we had a mutual friend, and I told him the mutual friend, and he stops, and the bodyguards come over because you only got like 12 seconds. He signs the book, and you go, hey, Sly, thanks. And he hardly even looked at you. But when I told him I had this mutual friend, he goes, oh, my God, you know so-and-so? And I said, yeah, we were back and forth for about 3 minutes. Then he does Rocky Balboa. And when I realized where he's going to be, it was later that night that I met Jim, the director of The Pretender, at Little Marie's. Jim had to catch a flight to go back to Detroit, so he didn't see this happen. My wife tells me, if you're going to go, there's going to be a lot of people down there. And I had done a painting of Rocky and Apollo, a black and white painting from the 14th round, where Rocky waves Apollo in and breaks his ribs. It's the most significant moment to me in cinema history. So she said, take this painting. It will get Sly's attention. There's going to be a lot of locals looking to get his attention. And she was right. He sees the painting, comes right over. Oh, my God, did you do this? And so he's looking at it, and I asked him, would you sign it? I brought a marker in case, and he signed it. And we talked for maybe 15 minutes. It was amazing. I had the painting. It's right over there. And he goes, I'll sign this painting for you under one condition. I don't ever want to see it on eBay just because I signed it. He goes, this is one of the most noble depictions of Rocky. He goes, hold on to this. And this is the cornerstone of everything I have in my collection of Rocky. A few years later, I interacted with, I'm a Rocky impersonator in the city. And so I got hired to do a corporate event, and Carl Weathers was there, and he was signing autographs and so on. So we did a Rocky and Apollo, me and Carl Weathers shadow boxing with each other, and he signed the painting. So it's kind of valuable in one point of view. Not that I'd ever sell it. Anyways, later, Rocky Balboa's all done. It's now July 7th or 8th. And July 6th is Stallone's birthday. It was his 60th birthday in 06. friends of mine own the Victor Cafe in Philadelphia. And this is where the restaurant was used for Adrian's.
Yeah.
And this is where Sly decides to have his birthday dinner. He brought like 15 people with him. And my friend Greg DeStefano says, Mike, if you want, I got a table right next to Sly's. We're keeping the restaurant open, but his table's going to be in the back off to the side. He goes, if you want, I'll put you right alongside. You'll be like 16 inches from him all night long. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And anyways, that whole story is a massive long story. And you could read all these stories and more in my book, Cue the Rocky Music, which is on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, and so on. But the finale, what bonded us or brought us together from fanboy to friend, we're standing out front for maybe 20 minutes. And he's telling me about Rocky Balboa and some more of the filming and how Adrian was alive, but he had to kill her off and all this. And we had been doing Rocky impersonations for each other for about 10 minutes. We were each doing our favorite lines as Rocky to each other. It was a fanboy's wet dream. And I must have said something that triggered something in his mind, because he steps back. He goes, there was this guy up at Lil Marie's house, and he had this black and white painting of Rocky and Apollo. And I said, Sly, that was me. That was my painting. And he goes, that's how I know you. You're the guy with that painting. He goes, do you still have that? I told you I never wanted to see that on eBay. I go, Sly, I'll never part with it. I've got like Jedi masters guarding it. I said, it's never going to be gotten rid of. And so then through happenstance, when he came back for Creed 1 and Creed 2, I was able to get onto the set and spend a few weeks there. And I was talking to him in between breaks. I'd bump into him on the street, and we had these great epic conversations. And he would tell me all this behind the scenes stuff about Rocky that's not out online anywhere. And I passed these great stories on, along with my own knowledge, on my Yo Philly Rocky film tours. And that's kind of how it built up. There's a lot more has happened. That's just a few highlights.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's wonderful that you got to know the man. And by the way, I didn't realize I knew there was one book. I didn't realize you had two. Folks, even though I haven't read these books yet, I'm telling you, I'm putting them on my list on my Amazon page. They're going to be in my book club. So you can go to VinnieTartaros.com, click through the banner. I'm going to have those. Megan will have them. As a matter of fact, right after this podcast, Mike, I'm going to email you and Megan,
sure,
who got me on the show with you, my assistant.
Oh, sure.
Give her all of your information, everything you sell on Amazon, because we can put it on my thing and everyone can find it.
Oh, that's
because
great.
We don't want Mike's wife to leave him because he's broke.
Oh.
So you got to buy all this shit.
Yeah.
So go check it out. Let's get into the wife.
Yeah.
The whole time I'm watching this thing, I'm like, how the fuck did this guy find a woman to sleep with him once, much less agree to marry him and agree to live with you with this obsession? Greatest woman on the planet. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. But she has to be a little unhinged, because I'm born this way. She said I do.
Right.
She accepted. She's quite normal. So, but under the surface, what has to be wrong with her to go with a guy like me? And that's the thing. You don't find someone that understands a passion like that, because some people say what I have is obsessive. I say it's not, as I have all the figures behind me and pictures and so on.
Yeah.
Obsession to me is a negative word. It's got such a negative connotation to it. Passion. There's not a big difference between obsession and passion, but to me, Rocky has brought me nothing but goodness in my life. So that's why I choose the word passion. It's just a more positive phrasing. I met her at Burger King's parking lot in 1989. I was in Rambo mode. I had very long Rambo hair, and I thought it was going to help me meet girls. It didn't. They ran away. She was driving this old beat up car with a carload of girls, and she was by far the most beautiful girl in the car. And we just hit it off. We started talking. A few nights later, we went for dinner at Terry's Diner in Music, 24-hour place, and had a coffee and a BLT, and we sat for about 6 hours. And I said, what? I said, listen, not for nothing, but like, I don't want to sound like one of these insecure guys, but I'm an insecure guy. Why did you go on a date with me? And she goes, honestly, it was your hair. She goes, you got a whole Rambo vibe, and I love the movie First Blood. And I said, wow. So then I took one step further, and I said, you like Stallone's First Blood. Is there any other movies by Sly you like? And she goes, oh, Rocky 2 is my favorite. I go, now we're cooking with gas. Now this is a girl I have to latch onto. And that's it. That we moved in together probably about a year and a half later. And we had probably the world's most unromantic wedding proposal. We were at her mother's after we've been living together for like 7 years. She is not your stereotypical woman who needed fancy jewelry and marriage and all these things. She wasn't about that. She just wanted to be together. That's all. And so we're sitting at Sunday dinner, spaghetti sauce all over my face. Her brothers and sisters, nieces, nephews, the wives, husbands, they're all around. And her father punches me in the arm. He goes, oh, when are you going to marry my little girl? I look at him again, mouth full of rigatoni. Okay. I look at Sue. I look at everybody at the table. Nobody's eating. Mouths are agape. And I look at her and I go, you want to get married? She goes, do you? I go, sure. The table erupted. It was crazy. And in September 27, 1997, we got married. And, we've been together 30, going on 33 years almost. And it's a lot to deal with me because I live, sleep, eat, drink Rocky. Everything in my life is Rocky. That's I don't know. Psychiatrists could have a field day with me, I'm sure. So in the morning, because of my life, the way I can make a fair amount of money in a very short amount of time. So it gives me a little bit more time off than she has. She works management and retail manager and so on. So she's got that crappy job, 60 hours a week, sludging through the week.
Yeah.
She'll leave in the morning at 7:30. And I've either got like the local news or Rocky on. Then I go through my day. I do whatever it is I do. And then I have dinner ready for her at the end of the day. And Rocky's playing on the TV when she comes through the door. So she's left with Rocky, comes over Rocky. And she goes, look, I'm going to get a shower after dinner. Can we watch like a Julia Roberts movie or The Sopranos or something not Rocky, a Christmas movie? I go, anything you want. Because I'm always wearing clothes. My hair is cut to a certain look of Rockies and so on. And so I have to temper that, not because she doesn't care, she's not supportive, but because she deserves to have a fuller experience of life. She tells me there's more going on in the world than Rocky. I doubt that, but she says there is. So I'm always willing to try.
I just figured you'd go find a zoo somewhere with a tiger and, Adrian, what are you doing for the next, 40 years?
We did that. We recreated that at the Philly Zoo many, many years ago. We had fun with it. We didn't do it for real, but it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. But she's a champ. She really is.
By the way, I want you to go back. You went past something, and I thought I heard it, but I could have heard it wrong. September 27th, you got married. That's my birthday. You got married.
Oh, is it really?
Birthday. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Born in 62, September 27th.
I will always remember your birthday from here on out.
Mike, we're going to be friends for a long time. I don't know if
why not.
What the hell? Your story is fascinating. Just to put it mildly, I can't get enough of a guy like you. And I knew for some reason watching your movie that we were somewhat alike, and I don't know why, but we're both hiding behind, I have this persona online. Online, they call me Gran Torino because I'm the guy who yells about everything. These kids today.
Yeah.
So they call me, get off my lawn. But underneath, I'm this weird softy that needs to have kids come over and, do things and show the kids and teach and the whole thing. But it's born out of an insecurity, right? I went on, you don't know this about me, but I'll tell you, and then you'll know. I went on from fighting on the school ground. An Italian football coach was at recess one day. He saw me kick 5 kids' ass.
Yeah.
Were teasing me. And, he's bringing me to the office because I need to be suspended again. And he said, you ever thought about football? And I'm like, no, football? What? He goes, look, instead of getting kicked out of school for kicking ass, you go on a football field, you can kick all these kids' asses. We'll cheer for you.
Right.
I ended up playing D1 football. I had a college scholarship, the whole thing. So I took that insecurity and turned it into something else.
Channeling.
Yeah, just channeled it into something else. And I'd already been in the gym for several years. And this was back in the days when football players didn't go into a gym, right?
I got
Like
you. Yeah.
they wanted you to be more limber and flexible and just eat a lot of crap. And,
Yeah.
but, I went into a gym and just did the whole thing. And it's funny that you did the same sort of thing, but you did it differently.
Yeah.
Right. And, I admire that. I admire it enough to put you on this Friday show. I don't know if I do 5 podcasts a week.
Okay.
The Friday show is the luminary show. That's when I bring on luminaries, people with something to give. You're in the luminary show.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah, because you have something to offer to people. Because I think we live in this world now where people are just so, divisive about, or I don't know if it's divisive or divisive.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
About anything and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, this is my candidate. I'm that guy, and this is my religion, and me too. And all of this stuff is happening. Right.
Right.
And then you turn on the television and you see a guy like you and you go, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Look what this guy's doing. And then you started this whole tour company out of it, right?
Yeah.
You show people around Philadelphia. Do you live in Philadelphia? What do you do? What do you guys
do? I live right outside of Philadelphia, and we started a tour called the Yo Philly Rocky Film Tour. And we take people from around the world. Actually, before COVID, we were doing for about 9 years. We were doing probably about 40 tours a month. And the majority of the tours are from around the world. About 80% are from everywhere else, and 20% are from the States. Getting back on our feet now after COVID, like a great deal of people are. And what we do, we pick people up at their hotel in the city, and then we drive them around to maybe 65, 70 locations. And I tell this story. I tell a lot of what Sly told me, a lot of what my own knowledge is about the Rocky movies. And then I break down components of my life that are applicable to this whole Rocky thing about believing in yourself, having stifled dreams, sitting on the curb, watching the parade pass you by. No one gives you an opportunity. You start to feel, I probably don't have that much inside, but you realize you got one thing. There's one, you got to get invited to the table. If you could just get to the table, you can give what it is, even though you're not sure what it is, but you got something to give. So, long story short, when the private tour started, I didn't know what I was doing. And I had a guy at one of the Pope's Vatican guards. He had come with his family, and he took one of the first private tours. His name was Claudio. Took one of the first private tours. He loved it. And he gave me 2 words. He sounded like Count Chocula. And he gave me 2 words of advice. He said, Mike, you got to get a TripAdvisor page, and you got to get a website. Within 3 weeks, I had that done. And he was the first one to leave a review and it was stellar. And when I started doing them, I was doing 2 tours a month, maybe 8 tours a year if I was lucky. And I thought maybe if I can get to 10 a year, 15 a year. After his review, I jumped to about 20 tours a month. Then when Stallone endorsed me, he also endorsed my tours online on his Instagram.
Nice.
Hundreds of thousands of people see it. I never asked him for that. He did that because he genuinely loves what I do. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams when I was 11 years old watching Rocky get my ass kicked on the schoolyard could I have ever thought me and this guy would get along. Anyways, when he did that, when he endorsed me, I went up to about 150 tours a month. Like it's impossible. You can't do it. So I settled around a real number, about 40 tours a month that I do every month. And so now we're getting back up to that. Now international travel will be open again. So, it's great. It's great. We talk Rocky, and I get to hear people's stories just like yourself. I have a podcast called The Rocky Files, and it's an extension of my tours. And we bring people on where they talk about how Rocky has influenced them in their lives. And it really is an extension because these people have great stories like yourself. You have an absolute amazing story. You're very gifted in the way that you tell it. And I thought, people are paying me to take the tour, so they want to hear me. But there are some people that really stick out to me, and I really want to hear their story. So I invite them on to the podcast, and then me and my 2 co-hosts, we we interview them and we hear these extraordinary stories of loss and love and all these opportunities. It's amazing. And how Rocky is this center angel on their shoulder that helps them. And that's my deal.
Mike, I'm going to take a quick break here, but I want to keep you for another 5 minutes.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask you a personal Stallone question.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to answer it, don't answer it.
That's fine.
Okay. Folks, Villa Capelli is the longest running sponsor of this show. Villa Capelli olive oil, best olive oil on the planet. You can't get the good stuff here in the United States. You got to go to Puglia. You have to go to Puglia, Italy, and that's where the stuff is. Paul Capelli went there and started making the best olive oil on the planet. It's not the Lampante crap you get right here in the United States. This is the real stuff. Villa Capelli, go check it out. There's 3 ways to save money when you go to Villa Capelli. Number 1, spend over $100. That way you get the free shipping. Always do that. Number 2, get the 3-liter 10, because when you buy in volume, right there, you save money. And number 3, put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, 10% off every single time. Now, remember, you got to have over $100 after the 10% discount. So get all of the olive oil and all of the other stuff you want from Villa Capelli, and then go to checkout. If you're over $100, you get that free shipping and you get the 10% off, and you'll be better off for it. Villa Capelli, promo code Vinnie, 10%. We're talking to Mike Kunda. Mike, I've heard over the years, all the stories about, Stallone, his first wife. I know he had 2 kids with the wife, and I remember one son died, and I think he had a kid with autism and this kind of stuff. But the story about not having money, I've heard, he turned down $75,000, which in 1975 would have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the dog, and is that the dog that was in the movie?
Butkus. Yeah, he gets the dog back. Great story. Great story out of that.
Can you take 3 to 5 minutes and explain that story? Because it's one of the most inspirational stories behind Sylvester Stallone, period, I think.
Oh, my God, yeah. So in 1972, Stallone's working as an usher at the Baronet Theater in New York City. That's where he meets his wife, Sasha Zak. She was a ticket taker. And at this time, he was living in a 1-room apartment with his brother, Frank, and his dog, Butkus, this 140-pound bull mastiff. And the room was so small, they didn't have, it was 1 room, really. Stallone has always said he could sit on the bed, flush the toilet, open the window, close the door without getting off the bed. That's how tiny this place was. Anyways, he tells his girlfriend he has an idea for a movie. And it's going to be a love story, but it's going to be about stifled dreams, about people that never made it. But this one guy is going to make it, and he was going to put in the body of a mob boss. He was going to put it in a cowboy, but none of that really worked with him. He just kept it rolling around in his head. 1975, he marries his wife in 74, I believe, and in 75 they go to Los Angeles to seek their fame and fortune. They weren't much better off. Sasha is 2 months pregnant in like March of 75, and he realized he couldn't feed his dog, him or his wife. In an act of kindness to the dog, he goes to a liquor store and he stays there, and he sells his dog to a man named Jimmy Gambino for $40. And he comes home, they exchange numbers. He comes home and he's so depressed he had to sell his best friend. It's crushing. So Sasha says, why don't you go take some money and go see that boxing match you want to see with Muhammad Ali? And so he goes to a closed circuit television viewing of it, because that was at the Richfield Coliseum, I think, in Ohio. So he couldn't see it. So he sees it, and this is where he gets this idea. That's my movie. It's the fight. And, this Chuck Wepner was supposed to not go the distance. Anyways, he kind of hangs in there, and Stallone says to himself, what a beautiful metaphor for life. So he goes home. A couple of months later, he writes the script. Hollywood sells it. He sells it to Hollywood, but they don't want him. They want Ryan O'Neal, Jimmy Caan, Burt Reynolds, and so on. Anyways, there's a bunch of caveats because Stallone demands to play the lead role. They said, okay, if you want to play the lead role, we have some changes in the script that are mandatory. One, he goes, you got to film it in downtown Los Angeles. And he goes, nope, got to go to Philly. I want to see the cold breath. Philly is a fight town. It's a blue collar town. Plus, I grew up there. I spent 5 years growing up there. Said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, you got this giant dog, Butkus. There's no money in the script for a trained Hollywood dog. He goes, so you got to figure that out. We're not going to bend on this. He goes, oh, geez, what am I going to do? Well, he calls up Jimmy Gambino, and he says, I need my dog back. He lays out the scenario. Gambino says, well, I don't know what to tell you, pal. My kids really love this dog. And Gambino says, I'll tell you what. Give me $1,500. You can have the dog back. And Stallone doesn't have that kind of money yet.
Right.
I can't do that. But what if I do this? How about I write you a part in the movie? You watch the dog for the week that we're in Philadelphia, and then I'll take my dog back. Would that work? And the guy says, yeah, that'll work. Do you remember Mickey? Mickey Goldmill?
Which one was Mickey in the movie?
Rocky Strader.
Mighty
Mick.
Yeah, Mick. But when you said the last name, I didn't realize.
I threw you.
All right. So,
all right. Mickey Goldmill has a little assistant. The little guy.
That's Jimmy
Gambino. That's Jimmy Gambino. Now, that role was originally written for Micah Goldmill. Mickey Goldmill's daughter was going to help him run the gym. And
because that guy ends up in more than that movie, right? He's in Rocky.
He's in Rocky 5. He's in Rocky 5.
Yeah. I knew he showed up in another Rocky.
Yeah. And that's how Sly got his dog back and got in the movie. Now, during the filming of Rocky 3, Butkus passes away from a heart attack and he dies, unfortunately. And I'm unclear if Butkus was supposed to be in Rocky 3 and Sly took him out because he was so sad. I don't know. That is a question I feel like maybe I could ask him.
Yeah, it's amazing that the guy stuck to his guns on that. And by the way, the fight that you were talking about, the Muhammad Ali, what was the guy's name?
Chuck Wepner.
That's a great documentary. If you want to see, what's the name of that documentary?
There's a few, but ESPN's 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Google ESPN 30 for 30, Chuck Wepner. And it's really illuminating. Chuck is very real and very honest in it.
Yeah. It's a great movie, and it's a great documentary on that guy and what happened to his life.
Yeah.
His life just went crazy, but wow, man, you hear these stories about, no one wanted Rocky, they didn't want Stallone in it. They wanted anyone but Stallone. And look, the movie was up for Academy Awards and everything else. And it kicked off. And the other thing I know about that movie is I think it's the first movie where the sequel did better than the original movie, money-wise, or?
Well, Rocky 4, it really made the most of all of them. And Rocky 4 has always been my least favorite Rocky movie. I always feel that's so opposite to the character of Rocky. You have the big hair, the cut, chiseled body. It was just, I always put Rocky 4 last until 2 weeks ago. All that I've done in my career for Rocky fans, promoting Rocky, Stallone invites me as his personal guest to the Philadelphia premiere 3 weeks, October 11th November 11th to the Rocky 4 director's cut. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I am. I saw it somewhere online, and I was going to ask you about that. But what's the difference between the original movie, which I saw with the kids about a month ago, and the director's cut? What's the difference?
So all the corniness, all the cheesiness, all the goofy silliness is gone. The robot is gone. It's really a much darker, more serious, realistic film. The fight is not so ridiculous between Rocky and Drago. Apollo doesn't get killed so fast. He puts up a hell of a fight against Drago, but Drago does beat him. To me, this is a superior movie, and it's on Amazon right now. I would highly suggest for you and all of your followers, go watch Rocky 4, the director's cut, and then compare it to what you know. And it's going to be tough for fans. That's a big ask for Stallone. This is his original vision that he wanted to do, but he doesn't own any of the rights to Rocky. He owns nothing. So when the producers told him he had to make particular changes or go a certain way, unfortunately, he had to. That's just the way that it is. But now the studio gave him the opportunity during COVID to do it. And I think he'd like to redo Rocky 5 as well.
Well, I got to tell you, I will get the kids back over again. We're going to watch the remastered Rocky, because I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to wait to see it. What does Paulie get for his birthday instead of the robot?
Nothing. It's cut out. There's other scenes.
Really?
There's other funny scenes that are put in, but yeah, we don't even know Paulie has a birthday. The one thing I loved in the original Rocky 4 is when he's washing the Lamborghini and he's got the Italian sweatsuit on.
Yeah, with the red, white, and green.
Yeah, the red, white, and green, and he's got the Adidas logo, and he's washing the car, and the robot's there, and Apollo calls. That whole scene is gone, and it breaks my heart because I love that. I have a connection with that sweatsuit. That's kind of funny. But anyways, I think it depends on if you liked Rocky 4, if that's your standard, you may or may not like the director's cut. Because I'm a Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky Balboa guy, I loved Rocky 4 director's cut.
Well, I will watch it. I will bring the kids back into the basement and we will watch that movie. Mike, hang around. I want to say goodbye to you off the air.
Yes,
folks. If you like what's going on here, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, please go to VinnieTartaries.com, click through the banner. It puts coal on the fire, it gets my train down the track. Also, we have the superfan page at VinnieTartaries.com. I just found out just before I started recording with Mike today that Beyond Impossible, I'm going to have this at the top of the show. I'm going to have them added in. Beyond Impossible is up for pre-sale. So between now and January 11th, when it comes out, my third movie, Beyond Impossible. And by the way, same movie company that Mike uses over there, Gravitas, has picked up my third movie. Go check it out, Beyond Impossible. The more pre-sales we get, the better it is when it comes out. I don't really understand how the internets work, but you guys know that that's important. So go do that. Go check out The Pretender. It will be part of my in my Amazon search, along with both of Mike's books, which are named what, Mike?
So it's Cue the Rocky Music is my first book. All right. And that's very interesting. That's a lot of what we talked about, only far deeper. My second book, it's a 400-page manuscript that's not out yet. It's completed except the last chapter, and that is all about Chuck Wepner. I became very good friends with Chuck Wepner, and I interviewed him and some of the mob guys that he worked with and how he got into boxing. And so as soon as I finish that last chapter, that's going to be up for sale as well.
Mike, you're welcome to come back anytime, but when that book comes out, I want you back on the show so we can talk about it.
Thank you. I'd love to do that.
Good. Folks, on behalf of Mike Kunda and his character, Sylvester Stallone and Rocky.
Borrowed character.
My name is Vinnie Tartaries. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.